Hi everyone, this is Pastor Dan from Calvary Chapel, Cle Elum, Washington. If you've been tuning me in for any amount of time in recent weeks, you've probably figured out by now I really like the book of Philippians that we've been going through, and particularly this fourth chapter of the book. Today we're moving into verses 10 to 13, and we'll be covering the topic of learning to be content. And again, we'll probably be talking about this for about the next 3 or 4 weeks. Today, we'll introduce what it means to be content, and then start talking about how we come to be content within ourselves. So let's begin by reading Philippians 4:10 to 13. Paul says, "But I rejoiced in the Lord greatly that now at last your care for me has flourished again, though you surely did care, but you lacked opportunity." Verse 11, "Not that I speak in regard to need, for I have learned in whatever state I am to be content. I know how to be abased, I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I have learned both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need." And then verse 13, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." I heard a story a while back that during a flight above some mountains, the airplane pilot saw a lake down below, and he brought it to the attention of his co-pilot. "Look over there at that tiny lake," said the pilot. "My dad used to take me fishing in a rowboat on that lake when I was a kid. When a plane would fly overhead, I would wonder what it would be like to fly one. As I think about it now, looking down at that lake, I wish I could be down there in a rowboat fishing with my dad again." Seems like one of the most difficult things in life to get is contentment. We no sooner begin our journey to find contentment just to discover that we were happier before we began. One individual may be content because of one thing, whereas someone else may be dissatisfied with the same thing. Nothing seems more obvious that most people in our nation lack this very important quality of being satisfied with what they have. One evidence of that is the high rate of consumer debt. Much of it is because of discontent. But some of it's fueled by this powerful discontent that makes us think that we'll be satisfied when we have the right living situation. Our discontent drives us to go into more debt to satisfy our desire for more, only to find being deeper in debt causes us more discontent because it's now harder to pay back that debt. Advertisers, of course, aim to convince us that we won't be happy unless we purchase their products. Some are good at resisting these lures, but many are not. And when we give in and we make the plunge, we often find ourselves with one more item that takes more of our time to maintain, more of our time and money, and it leaves us less time to enjoy it, and that, of course, brings on more discontent. The fact that most Americans move about every 5 years is often a sign of nothing more than discontent, moving from one area to another, constantly in search of a better home, a better career, or a better place to live or to retire. Certainly there are some moves that are required if you want to keep your job, or if your ministry calling moves you to a different location. But a good portion of this moving around is motivated by this intense dissatisfaction that causes us to believe that the grass will be greener somewhere else. But we never seem to find that greener grass, or when we find it, we quickly begin to wonder if there might be some place where it's still greener. The same sorts of things could be said about the people we marry who rub us the wrong way. How about the instances when we think we've been treated unfairly, evidenced by the many lawsuits that are filed? Even people who win the lottery are often discontent not long after they receive their prize because it just wasn't quite enough. Sadly, people in our country are dissatisfied. The spirit of dissatisfaction prevails. Consider individuals who are commonly referred to as impoverished in our country, or poor. 46% of all poor households own their own homes, according to the 2000 census. A new house in 1973 had an average floor size of 1,660 square feet. Most poor children today are in fact supernourished, on average growing up to be 1 inch taller and 10 pounds heavier than even the GIs who stormed the beaches of Normandy in World War II. Today, most new homes are constructed to be a standard size of roughly 2,500 square feet. More than 75% of low-income households possess an automobile, with 30% owning 2 or more. 62% of low-income households have satellite or cable TV. A little less than 80% of low-income households have at least one smartphone. The low-income citizens in this country are far better off than the impoverished in almost every other country in the globe. While we enjoy one of the best countries in the world, we still have a profound discontentment in our culture. The church is not immune to this discontentment. Just 2 days ago, we were at an outdoor event in the middle of August. It was cool and the wind was blowing. We complained. If it would have been warm with no wind, we would have complained that it wasn't cooler. And that's the way many of us are. If it's hot, we want it cool. If it's cool, we want it warmer. If we continue to base our contentment on possessions or circumstances or the weather or going on the perfect vacation, we will never have contentment. Philippians 4:10-13 recounts the story of a man who has been unjustly imprisoned due to corrupt officials. He faces the very real possibility of being executed. And keep in mind, prison life in Paul's time was nothing like it is today. Prisoners in Paul's time had absolutely no creature comforts. The only thing prisons supplied to the prisoners in those days was the prison cell itself. No bed, no food, no clothes, no blankets or bedding, no toilets or showers. It would be easy for a prisoner to die of hunger or disease before ever and yet in this passage, Paul teaches us how to achieve contentment even in the midst of these horrible circumstances. Thankfully, Paul did have friends who provided for him in these horrible situations. And Paul expresses his thanks while also letting his friends know that he is content. These are tremendous lessons for us today in prosperous America. And admittedly, they are very, very difficult lessons for us to learn. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll first investigate what contentment is as Paul expresses it, and then we'll focus on how we go about obtaining this contentment. So I hope you'll join me for those episodes as well. Once again, I hope this has been an encouragement to you, and if it has, would you do me a favor? Give it a like, a comment, and share it on your own Facebook page. And if you're watching on the Calvary Chapel Cle Elum YouTube channel, would you subscribe to the channel? If you're in the Cle Elum area and you don't have a home church, would you consider joining us on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. at 417 East Railroad Street in Cle Elum, Washington? Again, this is Pastor Dan from Calvary Chapel, Cle Elum. Thanks for joining me today. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and may He give us the ability to learn how to be content in each and every situation that we find ourselves in. Jesus' name.